Okay, I think we're all good. I think we're live, so we're also streaming this. Um, yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Really nice to see some people who came last week and some new faces as well. Quick question before we start. Can I ask, can you raise a hand if you've done some imaginal practice before?
For last week.
that can be included, yeah. Nice. Great. So new practice to some people. And can you also raise a hand if you've done some psychedelics before? Nice. Cool. Yeah. And so maybe before we launch into the kind of topic for today, which is Eros, I'll just talk a little bit about the imaginal realm. And yeah, the imaginal realm, it's like a huge topic. It's almost kind of like saying, oh, what's like this physical reality that we're in? It's like this whole universe of things. And then it's almost like the imaginal realm is kind of like this other whole kind of like ineffable aspect of experience that has all of these different kind of dimensions and ways of experiencing it. But just to sort of give a little bit of orientation of what I'm talking about with it, it's like, yeah, it's almost kind of like anything that's ineffable or in some ways kind of like abstract from this immediate sort of more, yeah, like physical reality that we're in. So anything that feels a bit more sort of energetic, kind of emotional, associative, and lots of people who I practice with, the feedback that I get is like, oh, it's it's a bit like dreaming while you're awake, or it's like taking psychedelics. It's this kind of like associative, meaning-driven, rich world of experience that is always kind of present in our everyday, but often is the thing that we're not noticing. We're kind of noticing this more sort of rational, like physical aspect of experience. So when we're practicing with the imaginal, we're just sort of inviting that part forward and allowing those bits of experience to come to the fore. And last week we started with Somatic-imaginal. So with kind of all my models and frameworks and everything that I teach, the sort of the most simple thing that I'm doing is going through these different aspects of experience. So body, heart, mind, and soul. And so we started with the body aspect of the imaginal realm, and that was kind of learning to sort of attune and feel into these different aspects of experience that are sometimes a bit quieter. So things like energetic sensations, things like the emotions, the imagination and imagery, and our intuition. And in the same way that with the five senses, we can kind of tune in and listen. And if you focus on sight, some of the things that you're looking at pop to the floor. If you focus on listening, then you kind of like start to hear the subtleties of sound. It's like if we focus on these more imaginal senses of energy and emotion, those are the things that sort of start to come to life and be more at the fore. So that's sort of like one important part of being in touch with the imaginal realm. And today it's about Eros. And so this is in my motto, it's kind of the heart element of the imaginal realm. And Eros is a huge topic. And I just kind of almost want to, it's almost a sense of like inviting and welcoming in the broad sort of field of Eros that is already present. That's the sort of context and the framework of, it's this sort of life force that creates, inspires, feels, moves through all of us all the time. And it gives us the sense of what's meaningful in life, what's alive, what's interesting, what's inspiring. And it's always kind of like in the water and in the undercurrent, and the thing that's like, helping you navigate life. but it's just kind of like welcoming that in. And I always like to mention when I'm talking about Eros that in our culture, one of the things that is sort of most the kind of like immediate things that people can think about with Eros is kind of sexuality and romantic love. That's some of the ways that it's like most commonly expressed, let's say, in the way that, every song's a love song, and it's clearly a core part of human nature and what's important to us. And I really like to include that because so much spiritual practice and so much like meditative practice and contemplative practice sort of encourages people to sort of either cut that part off or to just sort of ignore it and put it away. And to me, it's kind of like one of the richest parts of experience. It's almost like one of the places where sort of we're naturally drawn towards being intimate with ourselves, with others, with experience, and being able to kind of work with that and feel into that is, like a hugely rich kind of like well of being able to know yourself better and understand the universe and the way that it moves. So it's really nice to include it. And also Eros is a much broader topic. So when I'm not going to kind of focus on that aspect of it today. I'm kind of like talking about the broader, more sort of like just the sense of like inspiration and life force that can be felt from kind of like just the smallest little sense of like, oh, this little thing is like, a little bit beautiful and magical, and that kind of like, gives me a little bit of inspiration during the day, right up to the Eros of like, oh, this is the thing that I'm like most passionate about in life and really want to sort of devote myself to. Just the full spectrum of that and how that infuses every part of life. And I want to talk a little bit about why this is so important for the imaginal realm. And the sense of being able to connect with the world in the way that it's imaginal, or to connect to the imaginal part of the world, requires sort of falling in love with experience a little bit. There's almost kind of like like one model for understanding these different ways of being is the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain. This sort of like more logical, practical kind of side of us, and then this more sort of creative, associative, expressive side. And another way to sort of understand that or to split that would be a kind of mind aspect of our being and then a heart aspect of our being. And it's almost like to be in that, more imaginal way of being requires being in the heart. And to be in the heart, there has to be a sense of like opening and just kind of like being able to fall in love with experience a little bit. It's almost like the mind loves to have kind of like the 5 ways to do this thing, or the 3 characteristics, or the 8 steps to this, and the heart just wants to like open and fall in love with life. And so today it's almost like just feeling into the sensitivity of what that looks like for you, that sense of falling in love with life, and noticing how that is already present, already there. Welcome. Yeah, so an important part of this is feeling a sense of safety that your heart can open. So there's a level of kind of like safety and space that's required, where you can sort of arrive somewhere and drop into the heart, be present with what's there, and like feel things. Essentially, it's almost like it's almost like one of the reasons I think that this gets so lost in our culture often is because people don't have time and space to really feel things and be open to receiving them. It's almost like the joy and the beauty, like feeling really moved, things impacting you deeply. Those all require quite a lot of like slowing down, taking a lot of care of yourself, creating a setting where you can just kind of, be safe, be present, have some time for yourself. So today we're doing that. That's part of what we're doing. And one of the things that I hope will come to the fore in the meditation that I guide is the sense that this kind of like underlying eros and love and beauty of life, it's already there inside you. And often we've learned for various reasons to sort of like ignore it or not let it in. And one of the reasons, or one of the things that really opens it up, is like being willing to have your heart broken by life, by experience, by others, by yourself. And that as well can be part of the beauty of the love. Because the mind like loves to be invulnerable and find a way to kind of keep itself safe, protect itself, be very, like safety is its biggest concern. And we need to be careful with that and look after it. But the heart just wants to love. And the risk of loving is that it gets some heartbreak. And so that sense of being able to kind of fall in love with life comes with the risk of the heartbreak. And there's a key thing that we're kind of listening for with this Eros force inside, which is that you can't control the thing that you fall in love with. It's like a very kind of the things you love, the things that bring you joy, the beauty in life. It's like different for everyone. Everyone in here will have a kind of different, almost like a unique set of things that brings them to life, that they love about life, that is inspiring. I like love the sunshine. Maybe you can tell by my face. I got a little sunburn yesterday, sat out in the grass. But something for me about like a sunny day and the way that light hits things. I was thinking while I was talking about this, that like the little things that pinged into my mind were kind of like, the like nice sense of a blue sky out there and the way it's like just subtly filtering through the curtains, or the way that the light kind of hits some leaves back there. It's almost like that's something in me that's like really has just a very kind of like everyday beauty to it. And everyone in here, the thing that is kind of like your Eros will be different. So in the same way that we're kind of like opening up to the risk of the heartbreak of life, it's also opening up to the way that love can't be controlled. It's very much just something that's already there. It's the way that you feel about something already. And that kind of like links back to the first session we were doing, where it's really like listening to these deep feelings of emotion, of imagination, of intuition, of energy, and noticing in yourself that the energies that are present in your being are the things that want to be loved, and are the things that are kind of like already telling you what's inspiring to you, what's meaningful to you, what's beautiful. And it's just being able to kind of like subtly tune into those things. So it's almost kind of maybe to share, it's almost like the end goal of this practice, which seems like a funny thing to say, because like I say, it's more just this sense of loving things. It's a bit like becoming a non-dual vessel for love and experience to just flow through, and that including the full spectrum of being. So the difficult things, the beautiful things, the relational things, the individual things. You're just kind of like finding the ways in which experience wants to show itself to you. It's alive, it has its own aliveness to it, and you're kind of like opening and allowing it to reveal through the practice. So we're going to do kind of like a maybe 30 or 40 minute guided meditation. Right. I'm just going to sort this out. And before we do the meditation, I almost just wanted to bring in kind of like, one example or one sort of context piece around how this then sort of like feeds back into the broader context of a spiritual practice, or understanding kind of, the deep natures of reality, or working with your suffering, or whatever your sort of like spiritual practice goals are. So through this practice, one of the key things that we're really doing is like noticing what your aesthetic is. It's almost like, kind of like when I was describing with the sunshine, when I'm working with people in the imaginal realm, one of the things I'm doing is almost sort of like helping them to attune to their kind of like imaginal resonance and their deep nature of being. Because then from there, you can then like navigate through life with the sense of like, oh yeah, this creates a lot of Eros for me. This is really beautiful. It like gives you a kind of North Star in which to be able to relate to the world from. And I wanted to give an example of this for me. So when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I came across the book Island by Aldous Huxley. And I'd always been a kind of, like philosophically minded, spiritually inclined sort of person, but I'd grown up in a very atheist setting, very secular. There had never been a kind of place of practice or anything like that. And like for those reasons, I found religion quite hard to engage with. I'd like definitely had some curiosities around Buddhism and other contemplative traditions and things like that, and kind of, but never really landed anywhere. And I came across the book Island by Aldous Huxley, and it's I actually haven't read it for 15 years, so I'm not sure of the details, but there was something, it's almost like the mood of it just captured me. It was like, oh, like, yes, this thing where it was like, it's set on an island. It's written from the perspective of a journalist who goes to this island, and it's kind of like, it's almost like a utopian society where, it's on a beautiful tropical island. Everyone has this much more kind of like relational way of being. There's like psychedelic initiation as as children are becoming adults, for example, they've trained the birds on the island to say karuna and attention, to remind people to be compassionate and to have attention. It's just this sort of like very, kind of like spiritual allegory, I suppose. And there was something about the kind of like the mood, the aesthetic, the whole vibe of it, where it really sort of lit something up in me. And I was like, oh, this is the thing that is the, this is like the thing that I'm feeling. It's like hitting on some deep aspects of my being where these things feel important, they feel beautiful, they feel like they align with the depths of my being in some way that's very ineffable. And it's almost like every kind of spiritual tradition has its own sort of like aesthetic and vibe and sort of, like story making that will resonate with you on a different level. And as well as sort of like broader life themes. So kind of, it's almost like different parts of the world to me have these like different imaginal resonances, or different careers have a very different like imaginal feel to them. And it's almost like being able to feel in yourself like, oh, where's the pull? What specifically are the things that I get excited about? And it could be that you're doing similar activities, but the things that feel exciting about it are very different between different people. Like meeting up with a friend, or with my partner, if we go out for a day out and wander around, it's like I know one of the things he loves is food and drink, and so we always like find a little place for him to get like a little pastry or a nice coffee or something. Whereas for me, I'm like super into nature, so it's almost like, oh, we find a little place where we can sit on the grass and be in the sun, and it's kind of like feeling the ways in which your Eros, the things that are important and alive to you, kind of are what makes the world sort of sing, and other things that, feel beautiful, feel meaningful. So I thought we would just go into the practice, but I wanted to kind of open up if there's any questions before we do that. And I think
there's like the kind of erotic desire that can sort of light us up and makes it pleasurable to move towards something, that we can redirect into like really productive works of art, or anything, and that can lead to family and everything. And then there's what's beyond that, like what else is meant by Eros, and is there a part that doesn't involve some kind of craving or
lovely question. So it's almost like I think I'll answer in sort of two parts. It's almost like there's kind of like a more sort of shallow kind of hedonistic Eros, which is it is important, and can be part of opening more to a sort of full life, is kind of opening that bit up. But then there's a sort of like really deeper kind of resonance of Eros, which is this more sort of like heartful, soulful. It's really about like, what are the things that are most important in life, that are most meaningful to you, that really hit on a level of like, yes, this is the thing in life that I really care about. I'm gonna like put my life force behind, that are about being my fullest expression, or welcoming the fullest expression of others. It's kind of like, as I was describing with the heartbreak, it's like the things that feel so important and that you care about so much that they have the capacity to, really break your heart and feel kind of like a tragedy in a certain way. And also a kind of, gentleness, goodness, beauty, humor, lightness that can come with it. But there's something in that kind of like gravity of the things that you're really passionate about and are really worth caring about in life. And I think that the question around, like craving and aversion, it's almost like when craving and aversion is a very kind of mental habit where, the mind sort of wants it to be this way and not this way, or really wants this specific thing and this thing's wrong, or that has these sort of, is more kind of like judgmental. It comes from a judgmental foundation, craving and aversion. And if we can like really drop into the heart, which is, like fueled by this more kind of like Eros and like deep desire based on what's most important in life, that's actually one of the routes to sort of there being less craving and aversion and less judgment, because it's a kind of deep desire and connection to the things that are like satisfying, resonant, moving, and part of that sort of Eros and welcoming in the field of Eros that's already here is that there's always things to love in the present moment. So it's rather than like, a desire that turns into a craving or a aversion that kind of like pulls you out into a different place and an idea and a judgment and I don't want to be in this moment. It's more like falling in love with the present moment and being like, wow, there's this small thing that's very beautiful, or there's this thing here that is so like sad and heartbreaking to me because I care about it so deeply. Does that help? Yeah. Hi.
Can you talk a little about the relationship between vulnerability or being overwhelmed by maybe fear of being heartbroken by life, and how just expand that maybe emotion or what to do with it?
Yeah, lovely question. So that sense of safety that we want to create, the sense of safety of it's safe to feel things, and it's safe to be a bit brokenhearted and a bit sad. It's almost like there's some level of just safety and permission that that's just okay, because it's like there's a deep trust in the sort of Eros and beauty of life and the sort of like interconnected like holding that can be present. So it's almost like feeling into, just dropping into the sense of kind of Buddha nature and like, oh yeah, this is actually what we're here for, is to love things and to feel things and to allow ourselves to be present, and kind of like creating a bit more permission there. And then but also recognizing that that can become overwhelming. And so there's a sense of almost sort of feeling that boundary for yourself in a just like relaxed, calm way, where it's, rather than it being last week I described, rather than having kind of like really sharp gas and brakes of like, oh, it's like, let's go, and like, oh no, it's really unsafe, and kind of like this, which is a more sort of mental kind of construction of like, it's either safe or it's not safe, and I'm sort of overwhelmed or not. There's a more kind of like heartful way of being, where it's almost like the sense is the sort of love and the things that you're feeling into and the beauty and the heartbreak are already present, they're already here. But there's just a sense of like being able to kind of like open a little more, close a little more, and just sort of like play with that boundary a bit of opening and letting a bit in, and feeling the sense of like, oh yeah, that feels nice. Actually, it's quite a lot. Maybe I can open a little more. Oh no, that feels a little overwhelming. Maybe I need to close a bit, and just having a very, almost trying to move out of black and white, which is a sort of the way that fear thinks. It's almost like if fear's at the base and in control, it wants to be very black and white. And if you can kind of flip it upside down and sort of say, well, the thing at the base is the love that's already here and the Eros and the life force that's sort of infused in everything. And yeah, safety and not overwhelm is important, but it's kind of like coming from that place, what feels alive, what feels possible, and kind of, being able to play on that more sort of scale way of being. Any other questions before we practice? We'll have some Q&A time after as well. Great. Okay. So we'll sit for about 30 minutes. So make yourself comfortable. And we'll just start by doing a couple of nice, long, slow breaths. So breathing into the belly so that the belly expands. And breathing out through the nose. And we're just giving our body the signal that it's safe, it can relax. It can go into the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is a place that you can always come back to during the meditation, just these nice, long, slow breaths. And we're going to start by building on this sense that it's safe for you to open your heart. So in order to create this feeling and help support this feeling, we're going to bring in an ideal figure. And so feeling into your own aesthetic, your own ideas of what feels alive, meaningful, supportive. You can imagine someone, and it could be someone you know, it could be, like a spiritual figure, like a Buddha, or someone who's spiritually important to you. It could be a more abstract, archetypal figure. And you're just going to kind of welcome them into your sense field. And you might get an image with that, or it might just be a kind of deep knowing and a sort of like intuition of, oh, I think it's this sort of person. It might be very vivid, or it might be very, just something very gentle, but some sense of a figure who is there to, create a safe space for you, a figure that who knows what's meaningful, what's important in life. And just take a moment to feel into what they look like or how they feel to you. What's the specifics of the colors that are present, or the shapes, the textures? What mood do they bring? Do they bring a gentle mood or an epic mood, or is it very, like vibrant and alive, or very chill and monochrome? Just really noticing the details of who they are and what they're there for. And we're going to ask them to support you to experience some aspects of Eros in the present moment. So the first thing we're going to ask to be revealed is the beauty of the present moment experience. So you're going to find something that feels, just sincerely beautiful about this moment. And as you feel it, we can kind of deepen into the imaginal experience of it. So noticing the energy in the body. How does that feel? How is that responding to, seeing this beauty? Noticing the emotions that come up. And they might be joy and positive emotions. There might also be sadness and the full spectrum of emotions. Noticing the imagination, so what images are present. Or what sort of colors and textures and just noticing if you have any intuitions around the beauty of the present moment as well. Are you like, oh my God, I need to really make the most of this, or this is really scary because it might evoke something in me, or just kind of noticing that level, and that's just part of the flowing texture as well of the beauty of the present moment. And the next thing we're going to ask the ideal figure to help reveal in experience is some heartbreak that is present in the present moment experience. And yeah, we don't need to look very far in this world for very big, heartbreaking things. But it can also just be very small, very subtle, just something that, moves you in a way that you find, breaks your heart a little bit and touches you in that way. And if that feels at all overwhelming or scary, having that sense of the ideal figure there who's there to help you feel safe and feel supported. And again, you can just notice any colors, textures, images, like tones of experience that come up with this heartbreak. Feeling into the specifics of your unique being, the thing that's really touching you in a way that, you care about it so much that it can cause that sense of heartbreak and the beauty of that. And the energy that's present in your body as you feel into that. The emotions. So again, with the emotions, there's probably sadness there, but there may also be some subtle joy or a connection to that sense of beauty and meaning. Noticing any images or colors that are present with this feeling. And again, just noticing your intuitive sense of how you respond to this. So is there a part of you that's like, enjoying and welcoming the heartbreak and or is it more a kind of, a different relationship, coming into contact with it, being careful? What's your intuitive sense, and can you create a bit more space around that? And then we'll come back to the ideal figure once more and feel into that sense of safety, support, connection to, a deeper layer of love and interconnection. The beauty that's been revealed, the heartbreak that's been revealed. These two things, different aspects of the things that are most important, most alive, most beautiful to your being. And so we will ask the ideal figure to help us reveal one more thing. And we'll welcome in the wholeness of present moment experience. So that full spectrum of things that are very beautiful and things that are heartbreaking. And just feeling how all of that is present and part of what is here. And they can help you hold it. So anything that feels too overwhelming or unsafe, they can hold it for you or in some way support you to be present. And when we're in touch with that wholeness, just noticing, how does your body, what energy feels present in your body right now? What emotions feel present? I notice when we invite in the wholeness and I feel into that wholeness, there's a sense of, vastness, expansiveness, a huge swirl of so many different emotions and the kind of beauty of, just the dance of life and the way that moves through each being in a different way, and I'm kind of sensing it, and it's ineffable and it's beautiful and sad and joyful and a big mix of everything. It has this sort of interdependent Indra's net kind of feel to it. You can totally feel that's totally my aesthetic and vibe. It's almost like noticing the ways in which, what does wholeness feel like when you feel into wholeness in the present moment experience? What's your specific imagery and energy? And finally, with the intuition, with the wholeness of the present moment experience, noticing in your being if it feels like there's anything that you need to do with this experience, anything that you want to do with it. knowing that you don't need to do anything. And so we're going to sit in silence for the last part. And the invitation is to, feel into those different aspects that we visited. So the ideal figure who's there to support you, the beauty of present moment experience, the heartbreak of present moment experience, the wholeness of present moment experience. And see if you can feel into the depths of your being. So dropping into your heart, dropping into that center, and feel a sense of Eros and desire to connect with one part of that or something new. And just be in contact with that in whatever way feels meaningful for the last part of the sit. And shortly we're going to come back. Before we do that, we're just going to do two things. So firstly, just really feeling the vibes of that ideal figure and the imprint, the energetic, emotional, aesthetic imprint that they put on your body, the way that you feel in contact with them. And this imprint is almost just going to give you a little bookmark of something that you can come back to as a place of support and safety. As a place that, can support you to be your full expression. And then when we come out of the meditation, we're going to just very briefly go into pairs. And we're not going to have a big kind of back and forth, but there'll just be a few moments to share something about your being that feels like it holds Eros for you. So something that feels, that you feel deeply in your being, that you care about. Something that feels like it, touches on something really intimate and core to who you are and your expression in the world. And so we're just going to spend a couple of minutes just feeling into something that feels like it could be safe to share, something meaningful to share. So it could be just a small metaphor and an image from the sit. It could be something more like a realization of, something you've seen about yourself. Could be, I was just feeling into what mine could be there to give an example. It's almost like as I was feeling through these layers, there's a sense of, like colorfulness, underlying colorfulness of experience that's very important to me, that really moves me, but that also there needs enough kind of like almost like white space in between the colorfulness, just to keep it chill, keep it relaxed. There's something in that has just a high amount of beauty in it for me and importance. So it could be, you could describe it in a very abstract way or in a very specific way. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And turn to someone and just share, just for 2 minutes, a little bit about something that felt meaningful. And if you're watching this at home, you can do some notes, make some notes. Nice. Yeah. So I think we'll just go to Q&A. But hopefully the sense of that meditation, it's just to get the taste and the flavor of what Eros feels like in you. And as a practice, it's almost like if that wanted to be cultivated, it's then just in the same way that listening and putting our attention on the five senses kind of brings them to the fore. It's like listening to these parts of experience that move us and training or cultivating capacity to really feel that in your being, and then cultivating that more and more and more through life. But this was just kind of like a taster of being able to feel into that part that really moves you as a being and what that looks like specifically for you. Have we got the microphone for Q&A? Cool, thank you. Does anyone have questions?
I have a question about the role of the being that we call in.
Mm-hmm.
I had a beautiful experience of the being that I called in, or the person, or the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to ask you a little bit, if you could speak a little bit more about, in a meditation like that, or even in imaginal practice, what the role of calling in that kind of energy or a being, when it's best utilized, etc.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. So I think one of the core reasons to bring it in was the sense of safety and support, because of that sort of the heartbreak side. It allows then for that more fullness of being, and but there's another side as well, which is I work with a model of shadow work where we have kind of like different parts of our being, and the different kind of like archetypes and aspects. And Eros is a very kind of lover aspect. So it's like feeling and falling in love with things. And that's also a kind of, it can also be the sort of like child part of us, that sort of like in the world, just carefree, open, loving. And what can really help that part open is knowing that the sovereign of us, or the sort of like sovereign of being, is taking care. So rather than sort of like being in a cold universe, or sort of being on our own, or a sense of kind of, the sort of like scariness and difficulties of life being the thing that's at the fore, which then makes it very hard to be in that sort of open-hearted, young, or more kind of lover mode. It's like setting the mood with a sort of sovereign sense of, you're safe, cared for. There's like capacity in the system here that you can then relax into that more sort of like lover, free-flowing heart mode. So generally you can't, unless you sort of like get really kind of like narcissistically obsessed with like ideal figures in some way, and kind of like really put them on a thing. It's like you can't have too much sovereign often, and it's something that's often in shadow a lot in our culture. So that's like, in terms of when to work with it, to me it's just a really beautiful thing to do at the start of. It can be used at the start of almost any practice. It can really just like help bring that sense of safety, knowing what's important, all of those kind of like really sovereign modes, and that then allows you more freedom to move. Does that answer? Yeah.
I was curious about what you just said about the sovereign being a big shadow in our culture. If you can expand on that.
Yeah. It's like, maybe it's not specifically our culture. I guess our culture, when I say our culture, the culture I know about, let's say, we have a lot of these, kind of like narcissistic leaders. A lot of the people who are promoted to the top jobs, for example, the run up to the leadership of this country that we're in currently, it's like, and it's kind of like an expression of how the sovereign is like outsourced to something outside that's like, big and noisy, and it's the best thing, and that's kind of like the inflation of that. And then it's almost like one of the things that allows that is because there's a sort of deflation where, for each, almost like for each person to really be in their sovereign is, it sort of requires an initiation where, like school's kind of a bit the opposite, where you're always kind of getting things wrong and feeling a bit dumb and having to live up to expectations. And it's very rare for people to have time where someone sits with them and says, like, who are you at the core of your being, and what do you want to become, and like, what's your full deep expression, and you're fully enough as you are, and those sorts of messages. It's much more of this kind of like strivey capitalistic culture where it's like more and more and more and more and more. You need to get more, prove yourself, and has these sort of shadows that come out in these kind of more inflated, like narcissistic leaders that we see. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was curious about, you said something there around the role of sovereign and feeling kind of in touch with your wholeness or your good enoughness. Does that come partly from the sovereign, all from the sovereign?
Yeah. So a sovereign energy, self-worth is kind of the core of sovereign energy. Self-worth, joy, just a sense of like, I'm here and it's cool and I'm doing my thing and I'm,
Thank you.
we have a 5-year-old girl, and hearing about how important it is to develop this self-worth sovereign, how would you suggest, without introducing religion, or for her to think of us as this sovereign, that she can develop this image for her own?
Yeah, beautiful question. Yeah, often the way, the sort of like first people who we have in this role is parents. So obviously you don't have to be perfect, but the sense of just kind of being there, being present, is part of that, developing that sovereign for her. And there's something interesting in healthy sovereign, which also applies to your sort of like inner world and your inner kind of child, which is that when a child's like developing their attachment things, it's like if a parent's very anxious and kind of looking after them, they'll feel that. And if a parent's sort of not noticing, so there's a really nice image of when a child goes off to explore and kind of like go and do something new and exciting, and they'll sort of like look back and check back, and they're sort of checking to see if they're being watched. And the kind of secure sense is my parent figure is aware where I am, but they're not worried about me. They're sort of like keeping tabs and making sure that I'm safe, but they're not sort of like getting into an anxious state. And then they kind of the child sort of receives that as a sense of kind of like healthy kind of individual. They can go, they can explore, they're safe. And that sort of imprints in them. And it's interesting because it's lovely to watch that process with children and kind of how they check in and the sense of like that thing. But it's also interesting because you can watch it in your own inner world with your own inner child, the sense of like and bringing in that ideal figure, sort of how that relates as a kind of fractal thing that happens. So it's that it feels a bit kind of roundabout, but I think that sense of it's almost like a sense of safety, okayness, and you're just okay as you are, and we're here for you. It's almost like that's the kind of sovereign transmission. And I think the question around religion, there is something in the sovereign which is, and I think this gets maybe more relevant as you become an adult, but it's the sense of something bigger than you as well. And so, I have friends who are completely sort of non-religious, and they say their spirituality is the mountains. And it's just a sense of something that's like, nature, the universe, something that has a holding to it that's meaningful, beautiful, and not just a kind of like cold, uncaring world. And finding little stories or metaphors or some way to like feel that and share in that, I think.
Hey, Rosa.
Hey.
You had mentioned earlier about being in a non-dual place and sort of feeling the energy of Eros and heartbreak and everything sort of, or you said, I think Eros and experience flowing through you. And I'm trying to like resolve maybe different paradigms around like imaginal practice where like the paradigm I've spent more time with like soul making dharma, it's like really important to have like two-ness and relationality. And if you go too far into oneness or not two-ness, then you actually maybe like the Eros will start to wane, or at least that's what they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious about your take on relationality in Eros in the context and with non-duality? Like how do those all come together and play? And,
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's almost like there's two being a kind of non-dual, how did I describe it? A non-dual vessel for Eros and experience to flow through. It's almost like the vessel bit is the bit that then creates the two-ness, because there's the universe and then there's me and then there's you, and it's like we're these different vessels, and the vessel that is me, the experience flows through in a very specific way, and it's still just the universe kind of flowing. It's still just the sort of non-dual soup thing swirling around and moving around. But when it moves through me, it moves in a like specific way, and when it moves through you, it moves in a specific way. And in each person, it has its sort of like specific, like tone and texture that it takes on. And that was almost kind of like with noticing with the ideal figure, like what do they look like for you? Who are they? What's the feel of them? What's the specific beauty of the present moment for you rather than for someone else? So it's almost like the relationality is more that direct, intimate experience of you plus experience.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think the relationality helps because it can, it's like through difference that we are able to see ourselves or something. You need a contrast to be able to see the thing. So it's almost like finding that like, creative spark. And I think in the meditation, it's almost like the Eros is the difference, where it's like, oh, the thing that you find beautiful is shining out compared to the things that are just more mundane to you. The thing that you find heartbreaking is the specific thing compared to the thing that is, you're just like, meh. It's kind of like seeing the relationship between those things rather than between you and another being.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. Really nice to practice with you. I'll do one of these.